Allan, Chapter 4, The Haircut. He looked through the drawers and he brought out a scissor. He evened out his hair and he dropped the rest in the garbage can. As soon as he departed, Allan appeared and he rescued the locks of the hair that had been thrown away. Gregory sometimes displayed strange eating habits, but if the hair helped him recover his health, Allan was not going to question the logic behind it. When he returned, Gregory was out of bed and he was eating an oatmeal for breakfast. From time to time, he would reach into a leather purse that had Caron's hair to eat some more strands. Gregory smiled when he saw Allan and he asked, "Did Caron like his new haircut?" "If you call that a haircut," retorted Allan. "You always have to complain about everything, don't you, Allan dear?" said Gregory. "Here, he evened it out a little," said Allan, handing to Gregory a tuft of hair. "Boo!" complained Gregory, taking the hair and adding it to his pile. Allan waited and waited, and Gregory continued with his breakfast, assuming that Allan had already left. He saw that Gregory was ignoring him, so he left. A week passed, and Gregory was still not up to returning to civilization, but at least he was calm enough for it to return to work. And during that time, Caron fulfilled his promise to Julian. Every day he played chess with the boy. On the seventh day, Julian said, "You had improved greatly, my pupil." "If you say so," said Caron, who was peeved at constantly losing to a mere child. Julian said, "Today, if I win, I want you to take me to see my father." "I think you should ask your mother," said Caron. "Don't you think I already asked her, but she won't let me see him," complained Julian, with his eyes slowly getting filled with crocodile tears. "And what if my father's dead and nobody wants to tell me?" Caron, falling for the trick, went to console Julian, and he agreed to take the boy to the sacred mass guild to see his Gregory. Julian warned him that Eddie might offer opposition, so Caron had to be clever about the visit. After thinking for a bit, Caron came up with an idea. He took Julian home with him and he had him wait in the tea room, and he returned dressed as a maiden with his shawl. He said to Julian, "You're pretty small, so I can hide you. And when we go inside, try not to make any sound in case I have to outsmart Eric." Caron entered the Sacred Mass Guild, and this morning it was bustling with activity, with members coming and going, emptying out the notice boards and bringing in new tasks. From time to time, Sophina would summon specific members to engage in covert operations. Caron slipped with ease among the bustling of activity, and eventually he bumped into Sophina, who was barking orders at a kid who wanted to join the guild. She tended to be extra mean to the newbies. When Sophina saw Caron, she said, "Hey, what's up? I like your new hair. And you should try frosting it and maybe give it a nice pink dye. It would totally suit you." And she always tells people to dye their hair pink because her hair's dyed pink. "I'm a little busy," said Caron, trying to get away from Sophina. Sophina, chasing after Caron, asked, "Busy with what?" "Well, I have a delivery for Eric." Yes, he needs me to give him something," like Caron. "Oh, that's too bad. Eric is not here. Otani's in the middle of a slave rebellion, and Eric went to monitor the situation," retorted Sophina. "But you don't need to worry about it. We got this." A champion came to Sophina with a report, and she turned around to listen, and Caron used the chance to slip away. And on the second floor of the guild was the barracks and the magic school, and apprentices received standard military training, and those who had even a hint of magic were taught spells. The mages in the training passed by with their grimoires, and Caron only needed to make it up one more flight of stairs, and with some luck, he would not run into Allan. When Caron made it to the top floor, he breathed a sigh of relief, and he placed little Julian on the floor and took him by the hand, and he whispered to the kid, "Let's knock very quietly so we don't startle your father in case he's sleeping." First they passed the extravagant door belonging to Sophina, bright pink with a decorative stained glass featuring a woman with a small child. The second door was plain looking with a simple golden engraving that read Eric. And Gregory's door had a sign that read, "Greg doesn't feel well, have some compassion." Caron placed his ear against the door, and he heard some low whispers. And Caron knocked, and he waited for a response, and the room grew quiet. And Allan manifested behind Caron, and he was looming over him with a face twisted in undisguised fury. He drew near Caron and he whispered, "Are you blind? Didn't you read the sign? Gregory doesn't feel well." "What is wrong with Gregory? We have a right to know," said Caron, folding his arm. And Allan's face changed to a look of anguish when he saw little Julian knocking at the door. And Allan teleported back into the bedroom, and he saw Gregory cowering under his bedsheets. And it got worse when Julian started yelling, "Dad, open the door, I want to see you." Gregory started hyperventilating when he heard Julian's voice, and Allan saw this, and he came to speak with Julian, and bowing with his head touching the floor, Allan begged, "Please, Lord Julian, your father's not well, please let him rest." "You bullied him, didn't you? That's why he's not well," yelled Julian before returning to knock on the door. "Dad, are you alright? Caron break the door, we need to help him." "Please, Lord Julian," repeated Allan, now smashing his head against the floor. "I am begging you." On the other door, Gregory was stifling his scream into a pillow, and Allan could see Gregory's desperation. Allan got enough made a motion to take Julian, but the child moved away to hide behind Caron, and at first he started to fake cry, but then it quickly became genuine. "I want to see my daddy, please let me see him." Gregory's eyes became glassy, and then the brainstorm of his emotions completely dissipated, and in a calm, emotionless tone he said, "Allan, let my son come inside." Allan returned to the room, and he reincorporated Gregory in his bed, and after arranging a few items to make the room look as presentable as possible. And after meditating a bit, Allan made a quick stop to the attic to fetch Priscilla. Priscilla was a rag doll that was one of the few possessions that belonged to Gregory's mother. Allan handed Gregory the doll. Gregory held the small doll to his heart, and Allan embraced Gregory, and he whispered, "I'm not opening the door till you return to your senses, Gregory." And on the other side of the door, Caron was trying his best to soothe little Julian, and Julian had calmed down somewhat after hearing his father's voice. And Greg cried silently on Allan's shoulder for 10 minutes, and when he felt calmer, Allan opened the door. Julian ran to his father, and he jumped into the bed with his arms outstretched. Smiling, Julian said, "Father, did you miss me, my heart? And was the children picking on you again?" asked Gregory, patting Julian's locks of hair. Caron hesitated a bit, and he felt like an outsider, and in the end he sat down in one of the few chairs in the room, and nearby stood Allan, staring daggers at him. "Dad, I told my classmate that you were Grimory and nobody believed me," said Julian. "My heart, why ever would you spread such a lie?" asked Gregory. "But it's true, don't lie. Eric sometimes calls Grimory Gred, and Allan too calls Grimory by your name," complained Julian. "And our cat Inanis, she can turn into an armor, I saw her." "Inanis," barked Allan, "and you need to be more careful when transforming." "I'm sorry," said the black cat that was roosting underneath the bed. And the cat Inanis lived towards the window to people watch. It is truly exhausting having to pretend to be an armor all the time." "Look, Julian dear, nobody can know I am Grimory. If they did, they would put me to work, and then I would never have time to see you, son," whispered Gregory. "Greg, I started saying Caron." "It took you long enough to realize Caron," said Gregory, shocking. "But you are can sound so different as Grimory," said Caron. "That's the point. Grimory is a parody of a knight that got a little too out of hand, and after my first battle, everyone was cheering, and as a joke, I started acting like a storybook knight, and everyone liked me better as Grimory, so that is the person I tried to become, but I wasn't able to," said Gregory, sighing. "Without Inanis, I am just Gregory." "I like you better as my father," said Julian, wrapping his arms around his father's neck. "Grimory never plays with me." "Then why did you tell them that I was Grimory?" insisted Gregory. "The children were teasing Julian on account of his unusual family situation," explained Allan. "And I already spoke to his teacher and all of the students." "By speak, you mean threaten," said Gregory, laughing, and he added bitterly, "Those little imps, and they would not have their fathers if it wasn't for Grimory." "And did you speak to your mother about this?" "No, she's going to have a baby, so I need to behave," said Julian. "And can you make me a picture, Father? I told Leda that you were a talented artist. And don't forget to sign it. You always forget to sign your work." "Forgive me, my heart," said Gregory. Allan left the room, and he came back with paper and charcoal. And Allan then grabbed a small table, and he placed it next to Gregory's bed. And Julian moved aside to give room for his father to work. Allan helped Gregory incorporate himself. "Draw me Leda," said Julian. Gregory started to sketch the girl from his memory, and Leda was short for her age, and she was 12. She had curly black hair, honey skin, and black eyes, and she would often visit Julian, and Miss Lady was friends with Leda's mother, and she had begged Helena to compel Leda to be friends with Julian. It took Gregory 20 minutes to do a perfect rendition of Leda, and Julian then requested all the drawings. Gregory drew a pelican, a cat, and a puppy, and this task occupied Gregory for 2 hours, and during that time Caron was quite thoughtful. He had never been inside Gregory's room. It looked dark, empty, and depressing, and it contrasted greatly with his own room, with the ottoman bed, the lithograph grimory, the writing table, the chaise chair, the ottoman, the baroque closet, the ceiling painting featuring a sea life. Allan, reading Caron's mind, gestured to him. Caron followed after him, but he found it annoying that Allan teleported to the other side of the door. "Hish," said Caron in frustration, and Caron fumbled with the locks, and Allan eventually returned and he opened the door for Caron, and raising an eyebrow, Caron said, "Now that is a first. I was under the impression that you had a phobia of doors." Yes, and most of the time he's just seeing Allan not opening the door but just teleporting to the other side. "Don't push your luck," said Allan. "Allan, remember your manners," said Gregory as he continued with his work. Caron followed Allan, who went towards the attic door, and Caron had never been to the attic of the guild. Allan opened the door, and the attic was bathed in light, and the center of the roof had a glass sheet that allowed the room to be bathed in natural sunlight, and other parts of the roof had tiny windows to capture as much natural light as possible, and the attic was an artist's studio with drawings, paintings, notebooks, bookshelves, paints, and many other things. And there were a few display closets with curiosities, tiny corals found in the ocean, and other strange items that had washed ashore. Caron picked out a random book, and it was full of botanical illustrations of begonias. He looked at other books over the talk, and Gregory had an affinity for picture books. Allan explained, "That room is where he sleeps, and this is where he keeps his loot, and you thought you were spoiled. I don't think that room is healthy for him, and we should take him outside," said Caron. "You're welcome to try," said Allan, chuckling. I bet I can get him to go to the beach with us," said Caron. "I accept your wager," said Allan. "That is just a turn of phrase," said Caron. "Bah, all talk," scoffed Allan. Caron went upstairs to see about Greg, and he sat down beside him, and he said, "Now that you're done with your drawings, want to go to the beach? The sea air will do you good." "I don't feel well," protested Gregory. "Not a problem. Allan can carry you," said Caron. Caron looked about, and Allan was nowhere to be seen. Allan was there, but invisible, and he was having fun at Caron's expense. Caron sighed and he went to offer his shoulder to Gregory, and Gregory wrapped himself around Caron's neck, who helped him rise, and the first couple of steps towards the door went uneventful enough. Though Gregory was taller and had more grit, Caron was surprised at how light he felt. Julian left the room and he waited at the other side of the door with anticipation, with a wide smile on his lips, and when Gregory got to the doorway, that was when the problem began. Gregory planted his feet down on the door, and despite feeling so light, Caron was not having any luck pushing Greg past the doorway, and Caron, laughing, said, "You're being childish." Julian, noticing the problem, tried to pull at his father's leg to get him to take a step forward, and Gregory once again started to hyperventilate, and the feat was broken when Allan pulled Greg by the arm, almost causing the four of them to stumble forward. Gregory barked, "Allan, relax, see? You got a foot through the doorway and nothing bad happened, Greg. And can we get going now?" said Allan, and he gave a small bow and he extended his hand. Greg took the hand, and then the four of them were teleported to the beach, and Caron looked about and he did not recognize the place, and Allan explained, "You can only get to this beach by boat, and navigation is difficult if you don't know the shifting currents, and it is worse the difficulty, for the lagoon has no reef current and the waves are gentle." "You should get a job as a tourist guide then, Allan," said Caron. "There's no need to oversell the place. It looks nice." Alright, at the end of that chapter, we're going to